Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
This is Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Suzy Cato. Hello.
Hello. Kia ora, talofa.
Straight into it. Didn't even have to ask. Thank you so much for coming over to join me on my podcast.
Hey, thank you for the invitation.
I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure you get inundated with requests like this, and part of me wonders if you're just not particularly good at saying no.
Oh no, you get given an opportunity, you've got to make the most of it.
Right.
So, and I'm honoured to be asked. You've got a wonderful list of people there that you've interviewed over the last year.
Yeah, it's actually been humbling. Like you ask people to come on, and the response rate's been phenomenal. Actually, it's been really, really good.
So, are they all runners? Is it just me that's not a runner?
No, the running's what I. Well, you are a runner.
I was running late.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I was saying
Thank you for making me say it.
Dougie, my cameraman, before you arrived, I was like, Mitch James, the singer, we had him last week. He was late, but you expect that because he's a musician. Mm-hmm. If you gave me a list of the 60 people I've had on the podcast so far, and you said who is most likely to be dead on time, I would have picked you, Suzy Cato.
And normally I would have been, but unfortunately, things were beyond my control. Yeah.
Right, and then did you send me a text message while you were en route?
No. It was before I hopped into the car.
Okay, right. I on this podcast, I don't know if there is like a real Suzy, a Suzy that we see, like the Suzy we see on screen and the Suzy we see off screen. But if there is a real Suzy that we've never been privy to, that's who I want to try and find today.
Ooh, okay.
The Suzy behind the baggy fluoro cosmic sweatshirt.
Hey, well, that's me today.
No, when the baggy cosmic fluoro sweatshirt, was that in the 90s, early 2000s? Yeah.
It would have been no, it's still the 90s.
Right.
Yeah, it would have been the 90s, late 90s. So I started in 1993 on You and Me. Prior to that, it was the big earrings and, or the big power hairdos and the shoulder pads with the Early Bird show with Russell Rooster. Yo, doodle doo, dudes.
I vaguely remember that now that you mentioned it, like in the real early days of TV3.
Yes, exactly. I started in 1990,
right.
And they would have been going for about 100 or so episodes, and I started purely so that Russell Rooster and Auntie Kitty the Kia and Dan Spike and Oz the Quack-Ups could go on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tour. So they went with the turtles through the sewers of the whole of New Zealand. Well, not quite, but they did go on tour around New Zealand.
You've done, your body of work is so massive. You've done so many episodes of so many things.
That's because I've been around so long.
Yeah, no, but I'm amazed that you remember these sort of details. So, there's so much to discuss with you, Suzy Cato. First of all, your relationship is there any relationship with running?
Running late, running to get out the door. Generally, I am on time because I'm running to get out of the door. But no, I mean, the most exercise I've ever done in my life was with Dancing with the Stars. And I actually had to start walking so that I could even audition to take my nephew for a spin around the dance floor. He's a dance instructor himself. But I actually started walking so I could even start dancing.
Oh, so you're not an exerciser at all?
I'm a great lump, really.
How do you stay in shape?
Well,
have you just got a really good diet? You watch what you eat?
I guess that, and a bit of a nervous energy,
right.
and I guess when you've got kids, even though mine are now 18 and 15, you do kind of end up running to do things. And being a small company, you do a lot of stuff yourself. So you're working both ends of the day, and you're dashing to get things done. So, yeah. I need to have a production company around me. So do you. You need to have a bigger team, so you're not running as well.
I'll tell you what, there's no better weight loss regime than the stress of not knowing where your next dollar's coming from.
Exactly. And I think COVID has played a big part in that for a lot of people, hasn't it?
Yeah, it sure has. So, but you must have run in school, like the athletics day. You're giving me a look like you got. Were you one of these kids that had a permanent note to get out of PE?
No, but gosh, that I wish I had. Look, I grew up in Kaikohe, up near the Bay of Islands, and Northern College. Dom, do I have to be honest and tell you that in my third form year, it was the last year that the school managed to have a romper. We had to wear rompers. The boys were able to wear shorts.
What's a romper?
A romper is a all-in-one bib thing that came over. We had little buttons that we would do. It had like a little singlet top, but it was made out of like a drill cotton. It was bright red, and it had these pantaloons that kind of ballooned out on either side with elastics around the bottom. You could either drag them down to around your knees and make them long, or you'd pull them up halfway up your thigh and they'd just go poof, this big puffball of fabric.
Was it? Was that the school uniform? No,
that was the exercise gear.
Right.
Yeah.
Like mandatory, compulsory.
Yeah. That's how old I am.
Do you have a photo of it anywhere? I can't.
No.
I can't visualise what you're.
I'm really glad.
If we had, actually, we probably got time for you to sketch it. I don't know. Wow, really?
Yep, it hid a multitude of sins.
When was
and
it?
I probably need it now.
So this was in the 1980s.
Yeah, it would have been
when you were at high school. Yeah.
So that was my third form year. So what is that? That's year 9. Yeah.
Oh, I can't keep up with that.
Yeah, me too.
So okay, let's go right back to the beginning. So Suzanne Noreen Cato, born in.
Thank you. My mother's the only one that uses that. Suzanne Noreen Cato. Oh,
where's Noreen from? Is that a family name or?
Yeah, it was one of my godmother's names.
Right.
Yeah. So
and you're born in Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
Wait, so but Kiwi parents or Australian? Yeah. Okay. What were they doing in Brisbane?
Mum was working over there, so she had me and brought me back to New Zealand, and I was adopted by my Kiwi dad, and I came back to New Zealand when I was only a month old, so I've got a Kiwi passport, and I do drive past, when I'm over in Aussie now, drive past the what is it? The Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital where I was born.
Right.
But yeah, I have the affiliation with the fact that I was born in Australia, but I'm a Kiwi.
No other can. Yeah, for sure. And what do you mean you were adopted by your New Zealand dad? So he's
Mum and Dad got married, and I'm in the photograph handing the horseshoe to Mum.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's not your dad.
He's not my biological
dad. Right.
Yeah.
Right. You have anything to do with him?
No. Yeah.
Does your mum have anything?
No.
You're not curious at all? I'm just. I'm thinking.
Well, yeah. Look, I did have a time when I was curious, but I have no idea who he is, or where he is, or why he is. So, it's about living in the now.
Yeah.
Something that I've had to learn to do is to live in the now and to let go the past and move forward.
Yeah, that's cool. I suppose I'm extra curious about that stuff because I went through years and years of fertility treatment, like 6 rounds of IVF or something, and ultimately it wasn't successful. And then we looked at other things like donor sperm and stuff, and you have to do some counselling in order to do that. And you get asked questions like, how will you feel if the child comes to you and says, you're not my real father and stuff like that. And so I think from the perspective of the person you call your dad, non-biologically, the fact that, I don't know, I'm sure he'd understand if you had curiosity and wanted to find out.
Yeah.
But it must be the most satisfying thing to know as a man that there's not even that curiosity there, or there's enough of that bond.
There has been curiosity, and
Yeah.
we've had conversations about it and things like that. And I think that's one of the most important things, is having a conversation and being open about it. And a number of my friends who have had to adopt children, not had to, but they have adopted children, they've often been open with them right from the get-go. So they've had photographs, if those photographs are available, or they've talked about it as being, I'm your mummy and I'm your daddy now. But, and so when the child does have questions, it's not, taboo, I can't answer this. It's actually part of everyday conversation, and it's quite normal.
Yeah. I think most of adoptions are sort of done that way now, aren't they? They're open. Whereas, like back in the 70s or 60s or whatever, it was all very, very closed and hush.
Yeah. Now, it wasn't one of those situations where mum got sent away. No, it wasn't one of those situations.
That's like an abortion joke. Now, a lot of people won't remember this, but it was like, I think it was still illegal in New Zealand. So you'd go to Australia to terminate the pregnancy.
I hadn't heard about that.
Oh,
no, okay.
All right.
Yeah. But I had heard about, and I've had friends whose family members were like their older siblings, or a lot of people are actually finding now that they've got other siblings because mum had fallen pregnant outside of wedlock and was sent to an auntie, and that child kind of disappeared off to another family somewhere, and the daughter came back. So those were very different times.
Yeah. So when your mum gave birth to you, was that like this was in the late 1960s? Was this a scandal in your family? Like she was unmarried, or?
Yeah, no, it wasn't so much a scandal, and it was my grandmother that went across to Australia to bring me and mum back. So, Dom, you've done your homework. Nobody in all my 30-odd years of being in television has ever asked that question, and it's there.
Right.
Yeah. So, well done.
10 minutes in.
Yes, exactly.
All right, we got what we need.
Hey,
That's the
right.
podcast. No, we haven't even got started. So
There's only water in this.
it's hot. Yeah, Susie requested a hot water. So you grew up in Kaikohe. You also spent time in Hamilton and Dunedin.
Yeah, well, my first 5 years were in Hamilton.
Right.
So we lived in Hamilton, very close to my grandparents, and on both sides. And then Dad got an opportunity. He was with the P&T, Postal and Telegraph back then. Then it became Telecom. So he was given the opportunity to have a transfer somewhere else in New Zealand to work up the pay scale and up the job opportunities. And he applied for a number of places and got Kaikohe. And we went, our mum and dad went, yay, where's Kaikohe? Oh, crikey. So a bit further than we expected. But I had all my schooling pretty much. I was at Kaikohe East Primary School, I think, for about 6 months. And then we moved up to Kaikohe. Hamilton East. Did I say Kaikohe East? I was at Hamilton East Primary School for 6 months. Then we moved up to Kaikohe. I started at Hamilton East... Kaikohe East Primary School. Then I moved to Kaikohe West, and then I ended up at Kaikohe Intermediate and Northern College. So I did all my schooling. And when I talk about going to all the schools in Kaikohe without having been expelled, I didn't have to move, but we just moved from one side of town to the other. Oh my
You
goodness.
say Kaikohe East, Kaikohe West like it's some big place. What are we talking, like 500 metres from one side, from west to east?
Yeah, you're so right. You're right. I know. But we did move, so it was much easier instead of having to walk all the way to the other one, as to walk to the other one.
And what are your memories of growing? What was Kaikohe like this would have been the 1970s? What are your memories of growing up in Kaikohe?
Look, it was a great place to grow up.
Yeah.
There were only about 3,000 people, and the families knew each other. You tended to know all the parents and all the teachers' families and all those sorts of things. You could walk everywhere, and it was the great outdoors. There were farms right on their doorstep, so you'd be out milking cows, or you'd be out. We asked me about running before in me romper. We did have to do the cross country, and Northern College was a great agricultural farming school. So we had boarders and people coming all over New Zealand to go to the school for agriculture. And our cross country was across the country. And I remember shooting ahead of somebody who was quite a distance in front of me, barefoot in a cowpat, on 1 foot, shot through ahead of them. They got a heck of a fright, and so did I. Managed to stay upright and had one nice warm foot. But it was a great school, a great environment, and a lot of time spent outdoors. So right behind, when I first lived in Kaikohe, we lived actually on a little lifestyle block, and then we moved across town, and up behind us was this big paddock area. It was a ramshackle farm, pretty run down, lots of gorse bushes and divots and things like that, and you just spend hours there building huts and climbing through things and catching tadpoles, and it was a wonderful life.
And what were you like as a kid? What was the naughtiest thing you did?
Oh,
Were you ever bad?
no, not really. I was a blouse, Dom. I was a big sook. I was a softie. So the naughtiest I'd ever done, I did have a sweet tooth. And I remember going out to Mum, I'd help myself to some icing sugar. I was like, oh, what's that? Oh, icing sugar. Grabbed a teaspoon, tried some, that was a bit of all right. And then thought, I've done something I shouldn't have. I put the lid back on, shoved it in there and went out to Mum and said, hi Mum, could I have a snack? And she said, I think you might have had something already. And I said, no. She said, what's that around your mouth? It was still icing sugar.
Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, my God. That is the most Suzy Cato story ever. Really? That's the naughtiest. You're just a good person.
Yeah, look, and I used to feel so bad and so guilty when I had done something wrong that it wasn't worth it. So, and there was nothing really to be bad about. We had great parents. We had, a free reign pretty much. We knew our boundaries and that sort of thing. But there's nothing wrong with knowing your boundaries. That gives you security and stability. So that's the way my kids have grown up too.
Absolutely. I feel like your parents would have been able to make you cry just by telling you they're disappointed in you.
Oh my goodness, yep. The raising of an eyebrow, yeah.
Oh my God. So how did you ended up in radio at KCC FM, which is it's now a More FM station. Still still massive in Whangarei. How did you end up there? Did you study? You do a course? Or you just go straight into radio?
In the final year of school, I didn't reach 7th form. I was in School C. We did, not School C, UE. Final year of UE being accredited as well. We got given a chance to have a week of work experience. So I had girlfriends that went hairdressing, some went to the bank, some went to the supermarkets. They just went wherever. And I thought, what do I want to do? Mum suggested that I try radio because her sister had been in radio in Hamilton many, many years prior. And I'd always loved public speaking and drama and all those sorts of things. She said, go and try your hand at radio. So I asked and got a week's work experience down there and applied for an internship in the final intake of interns. So I actually got flown down to Wellington, and I think I was interviewed by Sharon Crosby. So
this was for an internship for like Radio New Zealand. Right,
yeah.
right.
At the same time, I put my CV into KCCFM. So I did my week's work experience with the Radio Northland station, did a summer holiday out of the caravan stint with them as well, almost made it into an internship, but started this job in radio with KCCFM, started in the copywriting department, writing ads, and because it's a small independent station, it was like an internship. You got to do everything. So I started in writing ads, and then I did some scheduling of ads. I answered telephones, I emptied bins, you did everything.
Yeah, everyone mucks in and does a bit of everything. Yeah.
And then I started, they got me doing album reviews. So I'd go and choose an album, do my research. There was none of the interweb back then. You basically had to go and get books out of the library and talk to older people to say, who's this band and what do they like type thing.
In hindsight, you could even make things up, couldn't you?
Well, you could.
Not that you would.
Did I? No, I did not. I did my homework.
Yeah. So were you on air?
Yeah, well, I was one of the youngest female radio announcers at the time. I think I was about 17, 18.
What year was this?
Oh, Dom, hang on. My math's never been that great. So
was it like late 80s?
Yeah, it would have been late 80s, 86, 87.
Right.
Yeah.
Who was the manager? Was it Steve Rowe?
Yes, Steve Rowe was there. Yeah. Paul Colcord was there before Steve, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve was one of my managers and like a real mentor for my time in Palmerston North as well.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Great man. Very great. He used to get... Did he ever yell at you?
No. Can you imagine me needing yelling at?
I feel like the way Steve managed me, you could take him to HR now, but this was the days before HR. But I look back now, and he gave me a kick up the arse when I needed a kick up the arse. And I've got a friend who was at the station at the same time called Robert Scott, who works on the Breeze now.
Yeah,
and Robert's like a male version of you, Suzy Cato. He's very sensitive.
He's wonderful.
And Steve would never manage Robert the same way he would manage me. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The way Steve yelled at me, I can't imagine him yelling at Suzy Cato.
No, because I would have just dissolved into tears.
The lip would have been crumpled.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you're on the air. You're doing some stuff at KCC. What was your on-air style? Were you just nice and friendly?
Yeah, pretty relaxed. Yeah, nice and friendly. The advice I was given as I started radio was count down from 10 to 1. Because you go, when you're all excited, you get all high and squeaky like this. But by the time you're down to 1, you've got a nice radio voice. So you're speaking like this, you're nice and calm, and call yourself Susie, not Sue, because everybody had started calling me Sue at the radio station, and Susie was a sexier name. And this is the microphone button here. Turn it on, but not very often and not for very long. Away you go. It's like, crikey.
That's the training you got.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, you're thrown in the deep end. And did you sort of sexy it up, like a sexy voice, like, hey, KCCFM?
No, I didn't sexy it up, no, but you couldn't help when it's a slightly deeper voice, so it became a more mature voice. So I was taken for being much older than what I was. So you'd rock up to a promotion and people would come looking for Suzy Cato, expecting somebody quite sophisticated and mature. And there I was with me spiked hair. I had, I might have cut off the rat's tails by then, but I had rat's tails down the back and spiked hair and fisherman rib jersey and a little mini skirt. And they'd go, where's Suzy Cato? And I go, that's me. Yeah, gotta be joking.
So how long did you last there? Did you sort of make the transition from that brief radio career into kids TV?
Well, yeah, in a roundabout way. So I was 7 till midnight for over a year, then got given the opportunity to do a day shift from 10 until 2. And I found that I actually liked sleeping at night and being up during the day. So when it was time to go back to my 7 till midnight shift, I said, oh, look, no, it's time to move on. Found a job down here in Auckland with Muzza in the morning.
Oh,
So
amazing. Was that on 89 or 91 FM?
I think that was 91 FM.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So the top marks were on 89.
Right.
And we were on 91. And I was doing traffic and the weather and, organising telephone calls for him and things like that, which was great.
Yeah, Muzza, his real name's Murray Ingles. He's dying of, he's very old, but he's dying of cancer at the moment. But he's, a wonderful man. And wonderful
incredible.
broadcaster. But broadcaster from a time where the important thing was not necessarily what you said as much as how you sounded, and he had a great voice.
Oh, did he ever? The voice was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was he? Was he all right to work with?
Oh, yeah, he was wonderful. And he had a great team around him. So Kim Adamson and, everybody was fabulous. After that stint, I was in photography. I became a photographic assistant for a few years. And then that was when the break came for television. I was at a party, got talking to the executive producer of who'd made everything from Nice One Stew and
Who was this? Was this Andrew Shaw?
no, this was Rex Simpson,
Right.
who, oh my goodness, creative, who had talent to burn, and had made so many amazing programs. He started up the Early Bird Show, and around that time there was the Early Bird Show, there was In Focus, there was Yahoo, all these fabulous programs. And I got talking to him about being in television and what I liked in a children's television presenter. And we had a conversation, and that was great. And a year later, I got a telephone call saying, have you ever thought about being in television? Crikey, I jumped at the chance. But once again...
A whole year after you met?
Yeah, it was about a year. I'd ended up at a party with some of his work colleagues or people that he employed, and we got on really, really well. They were looking for somebody, and I got the telephone call saying, hey, have you actually thought about being in television? So in the deep end, sink or swim, I had about 10 to 15 minutes in front of a camera before the news went live the night before. I was on live television, so... And
doing kid stuff.
Kid stuff, yeah.
See, so you, how old were you at the time? Like 20 at the time? 21?
Yeah, 20, yeah.
See, at that age, being like an attractive 21-year-old, you'd think the natural sort of job would be, I don't know, something slightly odd, like a What Now or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like, kids presenting, it's a very particular set of skills, and that's very young to be doing it, to communicating with kids, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is and it isn't, but because it was on a Saturday morning, very similar to What Now, in that it wasn't preschool. It was whoever's waking up, whether it's somebody with a hangover from a big night the night before or kids of all ages sitting there in their pyjamas with their piece of toast and so on. So some of the humour was quite, not so much risque, but it was...
layered.
Yeah, layered, definitely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and the cartoons, we connected the cartoons together and we had a lot of fun. David Hartnell was a regular guest with his gossip from Hollywood and all those sorts of things.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's right. David Hartnell, he did his best and worst dress list every year.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Jeremy Wells always top of his best dress list. I feel like he's got a crush there. But so, and is this about the same time you met your husband Steve? He was in radio as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I met him in radio.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
Well, I met him at 91 FM. And
by the way, can I just say, so at this round about this time, because I'm just a couple of years younger than you. I was in radio in Palmerston North, and there were two. Yeah, there's radio stations everywhere over the dial now, but there were two big stations in Auckland, like 91 FM and 89 FM, and they sort of went head to head. Very, very competitive market, but and there was, as you mentioned earlier, much earlier, no internet or anything.
No.
So I'd come up here in school holidays, and I'd sometimes bring like blank C60 or C90s and tape some of the radio just to see how they were doing it in Auckland.
Oh, great!
It was a big fucking deal up here.
Oh yeah. It was huge, and they were real stars. But they also had the ability of the anonymity of only being the voices, not the faces. Now, as we're doing here with the cameras and all the rest of it, there's so much more.
Yeah, multimedia. Yeah. So so you were on air and radio, and Steve was
On air and radio too, doing Midnight to Dawn, and we were doing promotions together, and we were just great mates to begin with, really good mates, and we were out in a John Cougar Mellencamp cherry bomb. John Cougar Mellencamp was promoting his album, the Cherry Bomb album. So somebody had hand painted this mini, and it was bright pink. It was amazing. And we had so much fun. We were hooning around beaches and shopping malls and all the rest of it, getting people to sign and the car with a big marker, and also fill in a form to go into the draw to go over to Melbourne, I think it was, to go and see John Cougar Mellencamp perform. And you're wanting the story of when...
Yeah. How you, I mean, well, you're still married now. You've got adult kids. You've been through so many of your life's good and bad times together. I'm keen to know how it all started.
How it all started, right. Well, I was sitting in the car, and we were just great mates. And he reached in to grab some more forms. And as he did, his arm brushed against my chest. And an electric shock went through both of us. And it was like, crikey. He's going, my mate's got boobs. And I'm going, crikey, my mate's a boy.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, we suddenly saw each other as members of the opposite sex. And it went from being a friendship to... a little bit more.
Right, you must have discussed that and many times over the years. Was it an accidental brush?
Yeah, I think it was. Actually, good question. I need to ask him.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So and look, we had a wonderful year together. We had a year apart, and then we've been together ever since.
Oh, actually, what do you mean you had a year apart? Yeah,
we broke up. And we had a year apart.
Yeah.
And then we got back together again. Actually, it was Steve that got the telephone call from Rex, because he was the connection, the way I got to meet the executive producer. And Rex said, how do I get hold of Suzy? And Steve gave me a call and said, can I give him your number? And we got talking. We went and had a coffee together, and we got talking. We had more in common, and our paths were on a more similar trajectory after a year apart than they were when the first time we got together.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And then you had time apart again, like you were working in Dunedin, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and you did that for many years.
Yeah, about 5 years.
Right.
So,
God, how did the relationship survive that?
Really well.
Did it?
You end up with great communication skills because we had to discuss everything on the phone. It was a different when I came home, though, because it was like, hang on, I don't keep that mug on that side of the cupboard and down underneath. It's got to move, you know. No, we've been really, really fortunate.
In some ways, it's probably good for the relationship, that 2 week break, and then you start to miss each other. And,
yeah. So we did that for 5 years, and we got married in one of my 2 weeks home. So we're yet to have a proper honeymoon, but that's okay. We've got another, 30 or 40 odd years together, so that's good.
And what was the proposal? Do you remember that?
Oh, gosh, it was at the end of the Devonport Wharf, looking over the city, and we'd had a wonderful meal. We drove to the end of the wharf. We were looking out. It was just like the sea of lights in front of us. And I had thought it was coming for a little while. And so it didn't come as any great surprise. And he hadn't bought me a ring because we hadn't even had a chance to go and have a look at it. But yeah, it was still quite romantic. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. You get to that point in a relationship, where I suppose whenever anything romantic happens, you go out to a nice restaurant or you go on a wharf at sunset, you're like, oh, is this the...
Yes, exactly, the radar, yeah.
Or every 2 weeks when he drops you off at the airport, is this the moment?
Yeah. No, the only time, any excitement we've had with me being dropped off at the airport was one Sunday when I was being dropped off to fly down to Dunedin for 2 weeks, and I missed the plane. And I often almost missed the plane. In fact, they got so used to me. Here we go.
Well, after you being late for this podcast today, I believe this.
Yeah. But traffic. There wasn't the tunnel back then, Dom. So, but also sometimes it was a little bit harder because, sometimes being away was harder than other times.
Yeah.
And I missed the plane and ended up scratching and itching the whole way back to the house. By the time I got home, I just went, have I got flea bites? No, I've got chickenpox. So luckily I didn't give it to the whole plane and to the crew down in Dunedin, and it just meant that we had to record a whole lot more programs when I finally did get down there. Yeah.
But still, I mean, if you're going to get chicken pox from anyone, saying you got it from Suzy Cato, it's not I mean, yeah, I couldn't think of a nicer person to get chicken pox from.
I think I'd much rather not give people chicken pox. I'd rather give them a hug instead.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So how did the songs come about? Was that your songs which you're very, very famous for? Like, did you write them? You came up with
from
them?
You and Me, it's our time.
Yeah.
The program had been going for about 100 episodes before I got there. There was a presenter prior to me. Pauline Cooper had worked with Rex and the creators, and she'd originally come from Play School, and they had created this program, You and Me, to bring a more of a bilingual aspect to it, more New Zealand culture. Instead of it being a packaged version of Play School that was adapted for New Zealand, they created something that was specific to New Zealand. And Pauline Cooper was there right from the get-go, but she had a young family. She had grown children, but also had another child, and she also needed a change. So she decided to leave You and Me, and I auditioned along with 70 or 80 others.
Wow.
And had just started taking singing lessons, so I had enough confidence to sing It's Our Time in an audition. And I can't remember what the other song was, but there were generally about 3 songs. There was Hello, the Goodbye song, and at least 2 others within the show. So I just started taking singing lessons. I love singing anyway, but to do that in front of a camera, in front of people you'd never met before, and I was only about 24, I would have been about 23 by then. So I was still quite nervous, but managed to get the job and was offered the opportunity to move to Dunedin. Thank you very much. But,
Tempting.
Oh, tempting, very tempting. A fantastic community down there. Love it. But
Freezing.
All my family were up here. My boyfriend, this is now my husband, was up here. And if the job hadn't worked out, it was a year-long contract. It was a big haul to get everything back again. So I kept a foot in either camp and would go down there for 2 weeks and then come home for 2 weeks, come home to Auckland for 2 weeks.
Why was everything in Dunedin?
Oh, they
Is
had
that just
they
like
had
a TV hub?
Yeah,
Right.
a massive TV hub for years and years and years, for decades really. A lot of children's television was made out of Dunedin,
Okay.
but that's where Rex had decided to set up. He purchased the Green Island Civic Picture Theatre, gutted it, put in this amazing set and all the offices and things like that, and that was the perfect place for it.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That song, it's like followed you around, I guess, for almost like half your life, but in the best possible way.
Oh, exactly, because everybody remembers it. The only thing is they remember See Ya Later far more because that was the last song of the day. And so at the Silo Park, at the Teddy Bears picnic, there were so many parents that were joining in with me. Mind you, that's wherever I go, there are parents joining in with me. And I'm being introduced to a whole new generation of kids now, and it's such an honour to know that those songs live on. Mind you, you couldn't escape from me. I was on first thing in the morning with You and Me, and then in the afternoon, and then we had Suzy's World, which was on at 3:30 in the afternoon for about 10 minutes with all the science. And then I was also on a program called Family Confidential, which started at about 7:30 and ran for 1 season, where we went into family homes. It was a little bit like the nanny.
Right,
Yeah,
right, but a
we'd
reality
go in-
version of it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Oh no, not the fringe. The
Oh.
fringe. Not
That's
fringe.
what I'm thinking of.
No.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, Dom, nothing like that. No, but you had the nanny that would go in and kind of work with families.
Oh, the
and-
UK lady that
Yeah.
introduced New Zealand to the naughty step.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we had nothing like the naughty step, but we did actually take psychologists in and work with families and look at problem areas and things like that. So, yeah, that was an amazing series, and I would have loved for that to extend it. I would have been a far better parent probably, but...
Yeah, what would your, how old are your kids? You've got a daughter and a son.
Daughter and son, so they're 18 and 15 now.
Right. What would they say about you if they were sitting here?
I love you, Mum.
You know, what if they had to like pull apart? Because kids know you better than anyone
Yeah,
else.
for sure.
What would they say like your worst habits are or your worst
crikey.
traits?
I don't know. You could probably ask my daughter. She wouldn't mind sharing it. But I mean, one good thing is, and an example of the kind of relationship that I have with my kids, is that my daughter left New Zealand on her OE at the beginning of February She went to Cambodia for 2 weeks with 6 friends, and then I joined her in Singapore, and we had some nights in Singapore, some nights in Bali, some nights in Australia. So it was a case of, hey, Mum, do you want to come and join me in Singapore? Yeah, I'd love to. That's the kind of relationship that we have.
It's so nice.
It's, so that we're on the phone constantly. We're on Snapchat together. We do TikToks together, all those sorts of things. Look, I am a parent. I get grumpy. I get tired. All the rest of it. And I have to ask for the bag to be put away, the lunchbox items to be brought out, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And yes, I do get cross. Dom, have you put your lunchbox items out, Dom? But it's about you get cross, but then you actually let it go. Okay, that's happening in the moment. You let it go, you move on, and you enjoy each other's company.
So there are 2 human beings, your husband excluded, that have heard you raise your voice.
Oh, yes, and the neighbourhood.
Yeah, really? Well, now, there's a recording that'd be worth some money. And swearing? Have the neighbours heard you swearing?
Well, yes, they have.
Have they?
Yes.
Under what circumstances?
Well, Petra got this out of me. I don't think anybody else had. But
Petra, are you talking about her Grey Areas podcast?
Yes,
Fantastic podcast. Yeah,
yes, wonderful.
She's crushing it.
Yeah. So we talked about the going through pain and grief and anger and angst and all those emotions when we're disappointed and when we're hurt. And, of course, the big being let go by TV3.
Oh, yeah, I want to get to that, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest, most impactful ones for the whole neighbourhood because I was absolutely gobsmacked. You're going to give your all to things, and I had so much more to give, and it wasn't needed anymore. And so I bawled and I cried and all the rest of it. But another thing that I find is really, really good is to let it out. I don't tend to let it out by an open window any longer.
Oh, so you sort of do it in the car when you're on your own?
Yeah, and look, a shower is fantastic to bawl, turn the music up, scream out your favourite hits.
What are we talking, by the way, since we're on there? What hits?
Okay, so songs that I remember from my childhood and they're big emotive ones. And I can't think, it's not Donna Summers, it's somebody of the same ilk.
Donna Summer, I Will Survive would be... Oh, no, that's not Donna Summer, is it?
No, but there's that song, You Abandoned Me.
I love Don't Live Here.
Don't live here anymore. I can't remember who sings that. Yeah. And it's not about being abandoned, but it's that passion that you sing that song with, and you get the voice crack and everything, and the tears stream down, and it's so good to do.
So I'm just trying to paint a mental picture here. So are you like on the shower floor, sitting there crying, sobbing, or you're standing up singing and
bellowing?
Right, so it's an angry cry.
But that's enough of the visualisation.
Okay. Not in a creepy way. Not in a creepy way. Yeah. So that I suppose would you say this is the rock bottom in your life? This was in 2002 when you got shit canned basically by TV.
Yeah. Well, look, that was a rock bottom time because it was also at the time that I had my my second miscarriage. And it was one that I'd had to go in for a DNC for, and it only had happened. What's a
DNC?
Oh, DNC is where they actually have to clear the uterus. So they actually have to do a physical removal of the baby and clean the womb and things like that. So previously, my other miscarriages, the baby had passed without any extra
So it's like early in the embryo stages, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so the what is it? DMC.
DNC. Now you're going to ask me what that means.
No. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Thanks for sharing that. So this is prior to you being a mum at all. Before you had. Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry you went through that. At what stage of the first trimester?
I think it was only about 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but barely even knew I was pregnant. But to realise that I'd lost Bub and then lose the job. So it was the big
cumulative.
It was really huge. And Steve was in Australia at the time for this particular one, and so it just was a double whammy when you're not getting out of bed anyway because you'd just been hit by a ton of bricks that you'd lost another little being, and then to lose the job as well, but they weren't to know that, and it's part of the bigger picture. And do you know what? As one door closes, a whole lot of other doors open, and it's so hard to see it at that time. But because I wasn't under the stress of running a business, running. I was executive producer pretty much with, or associate producer at the time with Suzy's World, and employing people and so on, and presenting and script editing, and doing all these things. I actually had my body in shape to fall pregnant again.
Right.
So,
and that was your daughter.
yeah, my daughter,
Yeah.
and then my son. But also, you take stock at that time and you look at what you're doing and why you're doing it, and see whether there is time for change. So,
Yeah, like reflection, internal
Yeah.
reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still not. Geez, there's so much to unpack with that whole segment that we've just discussed. Yeah, I mean the fertility thing and those miscarriages. It's close to my heart because I went through years and years of fertility treatment, and I don't know. There's a lot of guilt and shame with that sort of stuff as well. From my perspective, because it was like a male infertility
Sure.
problem, and JJ had to do the lion's share of the work when it came to that stuff. But one thing that I found strange, and I still find strange. I understand the reason for it, but you know how when women get pregnant, they don't tell anyone during the danger zone, the first trimester or whatever, and then and this is the most common time to lose the baby. It happens during that time, so suddenly you're telling people you've lost a baby, but also telling them that you got pregnant as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, eh?
Yeah, and I hadn't told anybody that I was pregnant with any of them.
Yeah, because you just
And-
don't.
No, you don't, and then you don't tell. And I was on set. I had to take a day off work to go and have my D&C, and then I'm on set the next day, and I hadn't told any of the staff because we had a budget and we had a timeline and we had people that we needed to process through. We had guests that we were working with and so on. So you just, as you know, as a performer, as a radio announcer and a podcast host, you got to find that little light switch. You got to flick it on, and then when you go home, that's when you sink into the bed and you put the covers over your head and you bawl into your pillow and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose that was a time where the phrase prioritising one's mental health wasn't even a saying.
No,
but
exactly.
do you look back now and think, I wish I put myself first and took time off work when needed?
Well,
or no, were you quite happy quite proud of yourself in your strength and resilience that you
Well, I
powered?
guess I don't know if it was so much proud. I think it was the fact that as an executive producer, you knew that you only had this much amount of budget left. You had this much amount of time left. And it really helped me in many ways to bury it and to move on. But it then meant that I had to work through it later. So, because it's so important that you do.
Yeah.
And it's about having those conversations and talking to other people. But I wasn't even telling anybody that I was trying to have a child. And it wasn't because I had got to the stage where if I'd had another miscarriage, I could have gone to the fertility clinic.
Right, yeah.
So we hadn't quite got to that stage. But then the glue stuck and we were able to, I think it was the amount of stress that my whole body was under. And we do put a lot of stress. And once you stop thinking about it and take that pressure off, you can actually sometimes fall pregnant more easily.
Yeah, that's true. So what do you remember about that meeting at TV3? You had no idea it was coming? There was no sort of...
No. I'd gone in to take a proposal and to say, hey, this is what we've got planned for next year. This is what we'd like to do. These are the questions we want to ask and the places we'd like to film and things like that. And they said, oh, yeah, look, about that. Yeah, there's been some changes and we don't actually see a place for you and the program anymore. And to begin with, it was we don't see a place for the program anymore, and then it was we don't see a place for you anymore. And you go, well, hang on. It was a heck of a shock. It really was.
What do you like at that point? Do you sort of get defiant and feisty, or do you just sort of like crumble and you just, in that moment?
There was a lot of blinking. And there was there were tears. There were tears definitely.
Yeah.
And there was a big hug and all the rest of it. And I just went home and you allow the emotions to wash over you. And it came as such a big surprise. But look, it's really interesting now because time is the great healer. And I just shared a post just recently the other day about how our grief never gets any smaller. We just grow around our grief.
I saw that on your Instagram, and it's like a ball in a jar, and the ball doesn't get smaller, the jar around it just gets bigger.
Bigger, exactly,
Right.
because we might have that one piece of grief, but we then grow around it to be able to cope, and we are going to have other instances of grief that will either be the same size, smaller, because it's a more distant loss, or it's not as great a loss. But then again, we'll have greater losses. And it's not that we are immune to it. It's just that we're learning how to cope with that grief and deal with our emotions. And it's not about being stronger or anything like that, but it's just how we allow that grief to sit within us.
So you think you learned a lot about yourself in that time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But you learn about yourself with everything you do, with being a parent, with being somebody that loses a child or can't have a child. You had your pup, Kanye, on your knee before.
Yeah, I don't know where he's gone.
No,
He's around somewhere.
He's happy, he's off.
Yeah.
But it's about the loss of a pet.
Yeah.
They become such a part of your family that even when they're unwell, you ache the way you would if it was a life partner.
So you mentioned before that one door closes and another one always opens, but the I suppose the anxiety-inducing thing about that is the new door doesn't always open immediately, does it? It's a scary thing. It's not like you walk out of TV3 and then there's a bunch of doors and you're like, which one am I going to walk through? So what happens? So you leave TV3 and then I'm guessing you phone Steve straight away and
Yep, and headed straight home to him and sat with it for about a week. And then I rang my old photography boss and said, "Hey, do you have an assistant at the moment? Do you need one?" And he said, "Well, actually, I've got a couple of big projects coming up." Yeah. So I went to work for him. So that was wonderful. Just stepped back into that role.
Yeah.
And just rode it out for a little while. And I think, as I say, I started to climb back into a place where I could be creative and be productive, and I'd started taking singing lessons, not because I had an interview or audition for You and Me coming up, but because it's something that I'd always wanted to do, and I'd always loved music and always loved singing. And although I wasn't looking at a career in television anymore, that opportunity came up.
Oh, did you think at that point that was you done with TV?
Oh, you never know. You never know. I've never had an agent.
Right.
So I've never been on anybody's books to say, "Oh, look, go audition for this. Go and try for this TV ad. Go and try for this." It's always been a matter of being in the right place at the right time, or something like that, or forming my own production company, as I did once You and Me finished, and going, what kind of TV programs do I want to make? An educational one, because I learnt the value of educational television with being a part of You and Me, and Suzy's World became more of a veggie burger, whereas You and Me was always about education. It was always 1, 2, 3, ABC, tahirua toru, and all the colours and things like that, and using te reo to a certain extent with greetings and pointing out things and parts of the body and naming the items of furniture and things around the house that kids could easily identify. It was always based on education, but for preschoolers. Suzy's World was based on the school science curriculum and providing it in a fun way so that kids didn't even realise they were learning. They were watching Suzy Fruit Loop trying to find the answer to something and making a whole lot of mistakes along the way.
Sort of learning by stealth in a way.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before setting up your own production company. So a lot of people that are watching this or listening to this podcast won't know what that means. So how can you break that down in like simple terms?
Okay, so when you have a production company, you put a proposal together and say, "This is the kind of program that I want to make." You go and knock on the broadcaster's door and you say, "Hey, would you like me to make this program for you?" And they might say yes, or they might go, "Nah," or they might go, "Yes, but I want you to do it this way," or "It needs to have this," or "It needs to have, whatever." And back then it seemed to be so much easier. The broadcaster said yes, and you took the proposal to New Zealand On Air and they said yes, and you got a certain amount of funding, and the production company would then employ the producers, the directors, the camera operators and soundies, and the crew that you needed. So I would have a team of, there'd be about 6 people every day, and we'd make 2 programs in a day. We might film one on Mount Victoria in Devonport, and then go to Takapuna Beach, or we might be on One Tree Hill and then down in Onehunga doing something, or either end of the country filming. And we'd take a team with us. And then there'd be a team back at the office sorting out the schedules and doing the editing and, all those sorts of things. So a production company is a team of people making television or radio or podcasts. In this day and age, that production company, for a lot of us, Dom, it's you and
Oh,
Dougie. Sorry,
Dougie
you and
through
Dougie.
the wall, yeah.
You and Dougie.
Yep.
Yeah.
At this stage, yeah.
Yeah.
It started with just me, and then Dougie came along last year, and he was like, "Hey, man, I really like what you're doing with the podcast." So he came along as a volunteer, and thankfully we've got some money coming in now, so he's earning a little bit. But yeah, I'm hoping to like grow a team here.
Wonderful. Because when you have a team around you, you can do so much more.
Yeah.
You've obviously done some really good research anyway, but when you've got a team that can be pulling that information in and all that footage in, all those sorts of things, it does make it easier, and for promotion and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So now I've got a small team for my radio show, which is on 28 radio stations around the country, and we're in our 16th series, so we've been on for nearly 16 years, and we're one of the best kept secrets because we're not on any of the big stations. We're on the little rural stations and the access stations and things like that, but those are the ones that are most family focused, and it's all about the old classic songs and stories, and we've got about 80% New Zealand content. So lots of Kath B's and Wonky Donkey Mans and Anika Moore's, all those sorts of things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Where is it? Where can people listen? Or is it available as a podcast as well? Or?
Oh, it is about to be. We're just trying to get some funding for that, actually. Dom, let's have a chat. But if you go to suzy.co.nz, you'll find my YouTube channel, you'll find my radio show, you'll find my colouring pages. I've just started Cato's Kitchen, which is something that I've always wanted to do, is have my own little cooking show. So I'm doing that now via my TikTok platform. Crikey, all these things that weren't even invented when I first started.
Mind-boggling. So are you well versed on TikTok? Like, do you know how to, or is there someone that does them for you? Like
no, I'm doing them myself.
Right.
Although
there's a lot. You can spend a lot of time making a TikTok if you want.
Yeah. Or if you watch mine, very little time, because the dance routines. I get unfortunately my daughter's now overseas. Otherwise, I need to find somebody new to teach me the dance routines so I can do them. But now my husband is actually in my production team, who he started in radio. Now he's self-taught how to use the cameras and all the editing equipment to actually put these little things together for me. So, yeah, it's tight, but it's great, and we're having fun.
Yeah, amazing. Jeez, we've been going 50 minutes. We haven't even got to the meat yet of Dancing with the Stars.
Dancing with the Stars, and go, what meat's that?
So Dancing with the Stars, 2018. When were you on? Was it 2018?
2018. Yeah.
2018, and yeah, you had Matt as your dance partner.
Yeah.
You didn't do very well, right? You got voted off quite early?
Oh,
no.
Did okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I can't remember. So you
got to about week 8. So I did.
You did very well then.
Well, for somebody who doesn't dance and somebody who didn't take any extra dance lessons before she started,
was that Susie being sassy? Sassy Susie.
Maybe, yeah.
So who was on your season? Who can you remember some of the other people?
Yeah,
was David Seymour on that one?
Yes, David Seymour. I love David. We had so much fun together, and he coped so well with all the flack that he got thrown.
Yeah. So did he beat you?
Yes, he did.
Right. But that was kind of like a comedy. Like it was like a vote for the worst sort of thing. Like no one thought David could dance as well as what you could.
Oh well, thank you very much.
I had him on the podcast as well, and he talked about his memories of Dancing with the Stars as well.
Yeah. And look, it was a challenge for us all. No, some of us more than others, because I was a decade or two older than young Jess Quinn.
She won that year, right?
No, it was Samantha Hayes that won that year.
Right, God.
So, but it was her and Jess.
I can't believe you were just complimenting me on my research, and now I've like fucked everything up with Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, but no, it was so much fun. It was a huge challenge because, as I say, I started to walk before I could even start to dance, and some of these people are runners. They're fit as and dancers. So, my dance partner Matt was very, very patient and very, very kind and very, very good at saying left. No, other left, without moving his lips. So.
Not while you were doing the actual dances.
Yeah, no, not quite.
Right.
Yeah. But no, he was very good. The pressure in his hands, I knew where we were going to go next. It was great. Did you never get involved in it?
Absolutely not. I get, whenever it's on TV, I love it as a show. I get clammy watching it. Like the thought of learning like 90 seconds worth of dance moves. I don't know how anyone does it.
Well,
That's
JJ
a lot
did
to remember.
An amazing job.
Yeah,
too,
JJ did a great job.
Yeah.
When she was on. Good for you. How did you find? So you've been with your husband for like quarter of a century or whatever it happens to be, like your lifelong partner. How did it feel to suddenly be like have that level of intimacy with a new person? You know, you're dancing with someone for 8 hours a day. You're right up in each other's faces, even if there's nothing sexual chemistry wise there, it is still like very, very intimate and in your face. Did that feel weird?
It certainly did.
Yeah.
It certainly did. In fact, we were into about the third or fourth day of dancing together, and Matt said, "Susie, you're doing so well. You're doing great." He said, "However, this part of your body," and he pointed to around my chest area, down to about mid-thigh. He said, "That part of your body needs to be pressed up against my body from here to there." And he put out his thigh and he said, "Hop on." And I went, "What?" And so because of the dances that we're doing, you had to put your legs in between each other's and things like
sort
that.
of intertwined, yeah.
Oh, crikey. I'd never been in anybody's arms other than my husband's for years. It was like, oops, sorry, I didn't panic attack. And, we got closer and closer. We got used to it, which was great. And then the weekend, the day before we were going to be on television with a live show, I invited his wife and my husband and my kids to see how Mummy was going to be dancing with Matt, because I just needed them to all know that it was more about for me than anything else.
Did you feel like an element of like guilt in a way, like you were doing something naughty,
Well,
it just felt?
It just felt. I just needed them to be aware that everything was above board, everything was okay, and yes, I was dancing very close to Matt, but Matt was young enough to be my son, and oh God, I love him. He's such a neat guy, and we had so many laughs, and he was so very patient, and I'm just gutted that I'd finally got brave enough to be airborne the weekend that we did our final dance, and I was all set to, I was like, oh, next time he might actually lift me. I'd been so conscious of myself.
In what way? What do you mean?
Oh, I'm quite short, but I'm quite solid. And I just didn't want to break his back or anything like that.
Come on.
Oh, I know.
What do you weigh?
It's also...
55 kilos in wet clothing?
I know, but crikey. I can be a dead weight. Anyway, but it was also that whole thing of I'm not great with heights, and I'm not great with not a lot of clothing on, all those sorts of things.
Okay.
It's that a generational thing, but it's also a part of me. I mean, you look at anything that I've worn on television, it's normally up to my neck and down to my toes type thing.
Yeah, I did wonder about that, because it felt... I mean, it's ballroom dancing. So I was about to say it sort of felt like off-brand, the brand that we know as Suzy Cato, but it's not really. It's ballroom dancing. No. But as soon as the promo video came out, it's like, oh shit!
Yeah.
What have they done with Suzy?
Exactly. And as somebody said, childhood broken. I'm just glad I didn't break the leather pants that I stepped down in, because they were so damn tight. But
yeah, you must have been smashing like so many personal comfort zone things in that whole sort of Dancing with the Stars era.
Yeah, so pushed a whole lot of boundaries and learnt a lot about myself. And once I signed the contract, it was like, right, we're going to do this. So stepping out in the leather pants was just the beginning. And then, as you might have noticed, well, you might not have, but the frocks got shorter and shorter each time, until my final dance was in the pair of togs with a whole lot of feathers hanging out the back.
Oh, the Tweety Bird costume, the yellow one.
Yeah. So the next outfit was going to be an absolute stunner. It was more floor length, but it was going to be an absolute stunner. It was going to be the Viennese waltz, and it was going to be absolutely beautiful. And it was Matt's favourite dance. So I was gutted that we didn't do his favourite dance. And the outfit that he had designed was just going to be perfect. But I keep thinking one day they'll do a celebrity callback and I'll get called back. But they better do it quick, because I'm not getting any younger, Dom. It's not getting any easier.
But you can do it now. You can teach an old dog new tricks. You can. It's just that the old dog needs to want to be able to do the new tricks, I guess.
Yeah. And have the physicality, because we were all strapped up.
Yeah.
We were, ribs and ankles and all the rest of it,
Did you end up with like a post Dancing with the Stars, like come down or depression? Like, isn't...
Well, I didn't have it the same way that a lot of others did, because I turned 50 a week after I got voted off the island, basically, and then 2 days after Dancing with the Stars. And I kept saying with the contract, as I'm signing it, it will finish on this date, won't it? It will finish on this date, because we boarded a plane to go on a cruise around the Mediterranean. So you can't turn 50 and have had a better year, I don't think. I did Dancing with the Stars, frocked up, tanned up, glitzed up to the nine. It was a dream come true for me. And then to board a plane to go on a cruise around the Mediterranean was just amazing. I had the best year. And I did so little work that I'm still so far behind on catching up with everything that I should have done back in 2018. But it was just the best. It was just,
amazing. Who went on the cruise? Just you and Steve?
No, it was the whole family.
Oh, the kids as well.
Yeah. So we got taken over by my father-in-law, and my sister-in-law was there as well, and we went on a massive family cruise together. It was a kind of everybody's 50th combined, and a chance for the kids to experience something absolutely amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. Now, how do you feel about aging? You seem quite comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah,
You're happy
now. Yeah, more comfortable now in my own skin than I've ever was.
Right.
And
do you think you just slowly gets better?
Well, I don't know that I'm actually maturing. That's the only thing. So the body's aging. It's harder to get up off the floor, and here I am sitting cross-legged on the chair because it's a bit more comfortable. Otherwise, my feet swing off the floor. But I'll probably pay for it with my knees tomorrow, type thing. But I don't feel too much older than I was when I was first making telly. So
Yeah, it's funny that, eh? I said to someone the other day, it was like, you feel exactly the same, and then you get a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, and you're like, oh shit!
Yes.
Oh, that is me. That is what we're currently dealing with.
Yeah, I don't have to deal with it too often because once I take my glasses off, I can't see a thing. It's when I have my glasses on that I go, oh, crikey.
Yeah. I heard a story about Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses. Apparently, whenever he tours, he gets all the mirrors taken out of his hotel room because he
seriously?
Yeah, which made me feel a bit. I don't know if it's true or rumor, but it made me feel a bit sad.
Yeah, definitely.
To have that sort of relationship with yourself.
Yeah. We need to be able to love ourselves for who we are, whatever state we're in. And we are going to be in all kinds of states as we grow older.
Yeah, but it's a privilege, isn't it, to be older?
Yes, it so is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and another reality show after Dancing with the Stars. You went on the Masked Singer.
Yes, I did.
That's the one where you did atrociously, right? You were.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like to think of it as being doing atrociously.
You're the first person kicked off the island.
Yeah. So I made history. I was the first masked singer ever in New Zealand. And
what do you mean unmasked masked singer?
I was the first one to take my mask.
Oh, so this was season one.
Season one.
Yeah, right.
First one ever. So, and everybody, there has to be the first person. And my voice was so recognisable, and potentially so bad, that I got voted off the island first. Yeah.
You just couldn't wait to sing "See You Later."
No, well, I what did I sing? Woke Up Late by
Drax Project. New Zealand band.
Yeah. And I thought I'd chosen a song that had disguised my voice enough, but obviously not. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. No regrets?
Oh no regrets. No regrets even going on the Great Bake Off post-COVID with COVID brain and forgetting to put the sugar in the in the muffins. Peter Gordon was so kind when he said, now tell me about these muffins. There's a crunchiness to the sweetness, and that's because he'd seen that I was stuffing sugar into the muffin because I forgot to put it in the actual mix before they went in the oven.
Yeah. If you got asked to go on like another season of Celebrity Treasure Island or something, what would you say? Would you say yes to that?
I have been asked, and I have declined in the past.
Really? Why?
I hear that's a different kind of physicality. And I hear it's also a different kind of person that they're looking for to share on that program. And I'm quite happy being Susie. Yeah,
you're very authentic though. So I feel like with you, one thing I've learned today, which I'm probably not surprised about, like what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
You know, there's there's probably like maybe 5-10% that no one else gets to see apart from Steve. But generally, like, you know, this is you.
Yeah, it is me. And
so I don't think you'd go on a show like that and be people are like, oh God, Susie.
Yeah.
See what she's really like when she hasn't slept for 3 days.
Well, maybe I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, I watched the last season with Dame Susan Devoy, and she I think she's in her late 50s or even early 60s, and it gets quite ratty at times. This is Dame Susan Devoy, and she's throwing like a tantrum in the sand, like she sat on the sand with her legs crossed, like you are now.
Right. Okay. I missed that episode. So
it's been raining, and she just had enough, and she said, "I'm not having it anymore."
Right. And,
Yeah.
you know, that could very well be me. I've not been put in that situation, and I don't think I will, Tom.
Yeah, no need, no need. Oh, you had a good time during COVID, eh? You were like the great saviour. Sorry, this just came to mind now. The New Zealand government called upon you, like Susie saves the day.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but what I did was I picked up the phone and said, hey, are you doing anything for the ministry, with the Ministry of Education? Are you going to put any content on? Because if you do, I've got all these episodes of Suzy's World. You're more than welcome to use them. They said, great, thank you. Would you like to make some more? I said, yes, I'd love to. And then went, oh, hell, how do I do this? Normally I call in a camera operator and all the rest of it, but we can't do that. So that's when I had to ask my husband, you know those cameras that we've just bought that aren't even out of the box yet? And we'd bought them because I was going to start touring, and we were hopefully going to record some crafts and things like that with kids around the country. Can we open those boxes and find out how to use them? Because I've just said yes to the dress, and we're going to be making some programs. And he went, oh, okay. And he had to learn how to use them. But yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity because I got to reconnect with a whole lot of adults and connect with a whole lot of Kiwis, a new generation that I'd not met before, who hadn't met this crazy lady that likes to sing and make Play-Doh and be silly. So,
Yeah, I feel like at that time you were probably a saviour for a lot of parents. With, I mean, it was a crazy time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a crazy time. No one knew what was going on.
No, none of us did. But it was a sanity block. And I guess I can't just say it was, I was the only saviour. It was that whole team that put all that content together. And it was just so lucky that I had so much already in the can that I could provide them. That and as chair of the Kiwi Kids music group, I was able to call on all of them for their music videos and things like that. So we ended up with a whole lot of content that TVNZ hadn't already had, that the kids were now aware of, all these singers and songwriters who had music videos that were started to appear on home learning TV, but also on TV2 as well. So yeah, it was great. It was the perfect timing. We were able to make a whole lot of content and get it out there with captive eyeballs.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's funny, eh? So you've got this new generation of Kiwi kids coming through who know who Suzy Cato is. And then last time I saw you was probably when you came into the Edge radio station when I was there, and there were, young women there in their like early to mid 20s or whatever, who also had that same sort of connection with you from their childhood. What's the sort of like demographic or fan base that gets the most excited when they see you?
Probably more the young adults who watched me when they were little.
Yeah.
Because I can transport them back to a time where it was carefree and easy and happy, and all I said was, hello, my friend, how are you today? Are you having a good day? And we would sit on the couch and we'd tell stories and all those sorts of things. So the kids that are coming through now, they don't have the same volume of me unless mum and dad have found my YouTube channel, and then, they've got access to me. And I'm reading stories on a Wednesday night and on a Thursday night. And a lot of them are having me as a bedtime story, which is absolutely lovely. And I'll read the bedtime story. But so it's that older age group who really appreciate it. And my voice will take them back to a nice, relaxing, calm time where we just sat and we talked and we sang and we had fun.
That's such a powerful thing, isn't it? Such a cool connection to have. And one thing I like to ask all my guests is about their mental health. How's yours? Is it mostly good? We touched upon before the TV3 incident in 2002. Is your mental health mostly good? Are you quite kind to yourself?
Yep, much better than it ever used to be. And because I do...
Does that come with ageing, or...?
Yep, comes with ageing. It comes with a lot of self-work. I haven't been to counsellors myself, but I have read so many books, and it's always been about helping others just as much as it is about helping myself, because when TV3 kind of came to an end with Suzy's World and so on, and before I fell pregnant, I went, okay, what am I going to do? And actually, every now and then when you put a proposal in for funding and you go, if I don't get funding this year, what am I going to do? I look at, I'd love to do my counselling papers so that I can actually put the years of experience and the years of reading and working with families and learning from others, if I could actually put that to good use and still have an access to people because of my name. If I can create some resources, that would be useful. But there's so many good resources out there now.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I'm able to do is I'll I'll read or do a book review on useful books. So these are self-help books for kids that kids read a story and they don't even realise that they're picking up a strategy or something like that, or the people that have written them and created them have resources in the back of the book or a website that parents can go to find that kind of information. That's great for the kids, and they're actually utilising it themselves in the process. So, it's I'm already doing that kind of thing already. And at the moment, the funding keeps coming in, so I keep getting to do what I do, and I love what I do. So, yeah.
Oh, it's a privilege, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And what you're doing and talking about people's well-being and how they're helping themselves is going to help other people.
Yeah, well, it's when people used to talk about, I say used to, I'm talking about like 3-4 years ago, when people talked about mental health, you just assumed it was something bad, but we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health. And so if I speak to someone that's, in a good place with their mental health, it's nice to learn what tips and tricks they do.
Yeah.
It seems like you've got, like you like to sing in the shower.
Yeah. Sing or scream
and
or
scream in the car
or whatever. Yeah. And I'm always belting out a big song, and sometimes it's for very different reasons. It depends if it's a rap song; it might have a few words in it. But
do you listen to some hip hop? Do you?
Oh yeah, well, hey, with a 15-year-old, definitely. But my son is really big on the hip hop, and in fact, he says, "Mum, you're gonna have to wind the windows up on this one. this is an inside car only one."
And Mum, we're not allowed to sing along to these words.
No, exactly. Yeah.
What's next for Suzy Cato?
Oh, Dom, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. No.
Imagine you becoming a murderer. That would be amazing.
Wow, that would have the headlines, wouldn't it?
Plot twist.
I've got so much coming up. I've got some songs coming out. I've got a book coming out. I'm actually in my first movie. So I only play a bit part, but I'm in the movie Red, White and Brass, and it's about the Tongan brass band that forms to be able to go to the Rugby World Cup, Tonga versus France from 2011. And so it's based on a true story, and I play Liz. I'm the music teacher of a brass band. Can I play music? No, I can barely play the ukulele. So to be able to be a
well, there's a saying: if you can't do it, teach.
Yes, true.
Yeah. How many music teachers are failed musicians? Probably quite a few. Wow. So did you audition for this? Is acting something you wanted to do, or?
Oh, look, it's something that I've always wanted to do. And look, I've had the chance to act many times on You and Me. I was Mrs. Wobble and all kinds of things. Yeah, I've always expected to be on Shortland Street, but maybe as a Jane Doe with a tag around my toe underneath the seat.
I feel like you're too famous to be on Shortland Street.
Oh, you reckon? Oh, wow.
As in, come on, that's Suzy Cato.
Well, true. And I'd have to probably play Suzy Cato. And I play a role that's very much like Suzy Cato in this movie. So I'm Liz, the music teacher, and I'm in for the shortest amount of time. But I just had the best time on set. They just had so much fun. And the talent of this crew is amazing. JP, who's the lead in it, he just knocked my socks off, and it's his first time he's ever been in a feature movie. And in fact, a lot of them, it's their first feature movie. You've got to go and see it. It starts on the 23rd of March, and it's going to be in cinemas right throughout the country. And it's one of those real feel-good, not quite sing-along, but it's a feel-good picker-upper. It's just wonderful.
Amazing. I'm not even familiar with the story.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I remember the 2011 Rugby World Cup very well, and there was even another movie made called The Kick about Stephen Donald.
Oh, yeah.
Scoring the winning goal. So, what's the story about the Tongan brass band?
Yeah, it's a group of Tongan folk, and I should actually be pronouncing it properly. Tongan folk that want to go to the Rugby World Cup, and the way they decide to do it is to form a brass band, so that they can perform and get tickets. And it's not just tickets for themselves, it's the tickets for their whole community.
Right.
So within a stretch of about 4 to 6 weeks, they have to learn a piece on brass instruments to be able to play. And
is this a true story?
Yeah, it's based on a true story.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. There's a little bit of
creative license, for sure.
Yeah.
I do remember from 2011 when the Rugby World Cup was held in New Zealand, just the Tongan pandemonium and just the fans get into it so much, and the red and white flags everywhere.
Yeah.
So, what a fabulous story! What a great thing to be a part of.
Oh yeah, definitely, and hopefully it's the beginning of so many more things for all of us involved in the movie.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask you, have you got a taste of it now? You're keen to explore more acting opportunities and roles?
Oh, I'd love to, but I've got my EP that I need to get out. There's so many things, so yeah. I don't think of it in terms of a bucket list. It's a barrel list. and I've only just scratched the surface. So I'm going to be around for a long time, Dom.
I'm so pleased to hear you say that. I've got some friends who are in their 50s and they're sort of like winding down the clock. And I'm like, no, there are still so many excellent years left.
Oh, yeah.
So don't put limits on yourself, apart from Celebrity Treasure Island.
Yeah, maybe that one. Yeah. But I guess never say never either. You never know.
Oh, that's cool. Suzy, thank you so much for coming over today. It's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful chat.
Well, thank you. And thank you for brushing on some things that nobody's brushed on before. Because having an opportunity to talk about it actually, I don't know, gives me another chance to process it as well.
Yeah, and also I feel like one thing I've learned with doing this podcast the past year, everyone is carrying around like a bag of shit to a degree. It's just how much shit they're carrying around.
Yeah. Well,
because
you've had times when your own mental health hasn't been as good.
Yeah.
And it's hard to actually talk about it at the time, and once you're out the other side, and the further you leave it behind, the harder it is to actually connect with those feelings, the intensity of those feelings, because you've grown around that ball of grief. You've moved on.
Yeah, well, something that you said before that I sort of picked up on. It's I think you've been good at this, and I've just learned through my own trial and error that I have to be good at it. When shit goes bad in your life, you have to deal with it and process it then and there. I was just very, very good at just hiding it in the closet and moving forward. Each round of like IVF that we had, or each sort of upheaval in life, just like put it behind me and move on. I don't know why. I think that's just how I was raised. But it's like getting dirty gym clothes and putting it in a bag. Eventually, like you're gonna have to wash it.
Exactly, because you think you're leaving it in that closet, but you move house and it comes with you.
Unfortunately. All right. If only there was a song that we could end with.
Oh, I wonder what that could be. I'll break into a rap song now. No, I won't. I'll go, see you later, it's time to say goodbye. See you later, we've really got to fly. See you later, it's time for this to end. See you later, come and join Dom again, okay?
It is disgraceful that you were the first person kicked off The Masked Singer.
Thank you, Dom.
Suzy Cato, thank you so much.
Thank you, it was an absolute pleasure.